so my skeptical mind, and that's just who I am. My skeptical mind goes to, well, yeah, of course, you've got this guy over here that's logical and reasonable, and you got this guy over here that's wearing a tinfoil hat. Of course, the tinfoil hat guy's gonna see a lot of stuff, right? He's like imagining it, or he's watched one too many sci-fi movies.
But it can used to help us frame hypotheses for UFO propulsion, power, stealth, weaponry.
Everything that we experience is very positive.
Sometimes the field of ufology has a short memory span.
Welcome to UFO Classified. I'm your host, Erica Lukes, and tonight I'm here with Luis Jiménez, and this is a pre-recorded show. We had a bit of a kerfuffle on social media, and we have since spent time talking. It has been great to get to know him and learn about some of the projects he is involved with. He is an actor and also has done a great deal of work on the Big Phone Home, which took place a few weeks ago and involved several different researchers and celebrities in the UFO world pushing for UFO disclosure. I'm grateful to have him here tonight. I hope you enjoy the interview. I also want to tell all of you to go to UFOclassified.com to become a show supporter. This is critical to help keep me on the air, but not only that, it is also going to help fund all of the archiving that I'm doing that is critical to maintain a good knowledge of the history, to preserve people's work, to get that access to the public that we so desperately need, especially right now. So go to UFOclassified.com, become a show Patreon. Make sure when you're listening on Spreaker to get up there and like it, and get this information out. Share the show on your social media feed. I appreciate it, and now I just think you were so awesome. And it's like you did a really great thing for me, because sometimes, in this field, when you've been in it for so long, you get knocked around it's brutal sometimes. And so
no, it's a nasty community. I mean, I've learned, that's what I've been learning for the last 2 or 3 months, is that there's a lot of angry people in this community. Part of that anger stems from not knowing what the hell's going on and trying to find out for so long. Some of that stuff stems from personal issues. People go through stuff all the time. So it's a combination of a lot of things, but anytime look, and I'm not perfect, right? Like I've done the exact same thing you've done. It's happened to me where I see something and I'm like, oh, this enrages me. I'm very upset. And so what I do is I click and I share before I even really look at it. And then when I go back and look at it a day or two later, I'm like, oh man, I'm an idiot. This is an article from 3 years ago, why did I get so upset? But it happens to everyone. And I think, at least for me, when I used to do stuff like that, I was super angry. I was probably unemployed. I probably didn't have a girlfriend at the time. I was just, being an actor in Los Angeles, it's all about dealing with rejection constantly. And, it's easy sometimes to get angry and get lost behind that keyboard and to send or say things that really don't reflect the person you are. And so that's the opportunity I wanted to give you, because I had a feeling that's what was going on, and I think everybody deserves that courtesy, even though sometimes we're so caught up in our own emotions that we forget to extend that courtesy. But I mean, when I saw it, I was like, wow, why would she think this? And then I started looking at your page. I'm like, something's just not right. Let me talk to her. Let me reach out. And I think if more people did that in this community, and especially in the UFO community, and really any community for that matter, the world wouldn't be such a nasty, ugly, dirty place, And so, it was and also I was just like, I'm holding an event. I'm doing an event where I'm trying to get everybody to drop their personal beef and differences and just for one day, just for one day come together on some common ground. And I can't turn around after organizing something like that and start yelling at somebody and, blaspheming them. It's just like, let me extend an olive branch instead and see if we can work this out. And thank God I did, because now, we talk all the time, so it's great. And I feel like I mean, I don't know, you can tell me, but I almost feel like from your end, like you've had a little bit of a weight lifted off your shoulders. I don't know. You tell me. I can't say how you feel, but I just know that the relationship has just been really, really great since we've had a conversation.
No, I'm so stoked. And I thought that was, you reminded me of when I first, got into this. I was, just like, yes, this is so awesome. And everybody is doing the same thing. And we are on this party train together and things. And you reminded me of that, that process and things that I went through, right. and it's been a difficult process. It's been enlightening in some disturbing ways and and good, good ways. And I think, when I originally saw just one of the graphics and studying some of the things that have gone back historically, that's what kind of triggered me. And I knew that it's like I needed to explain that to you. So, you knew where I was coming from, and then, apologize and just say, you had some really lovely, lovely people on that event. Some people that of course they're, some people I disagree with, but you had some really great people, and you've got, a group of younger people that are really excited about this, and they're trying to get information out and trying to learn, and it's a big process. And so I commend you for, for doing that and reaching out and all of that stuff, because at the end of the day, it's fun to have, you in my life and to have a new friend and things like that, because Lord knows it is a nasty world. It's a really strange community, and, it's like, so I'm really happy. So thank you for your kindness and your coolness and all that stuff. Oh yeah,
no worries. Look, we're trying to change the world. I mean, as crazy and as sort of, kumbaya as that sounds, like we're trying to change the world with new information. And the only way we get the information that we're all looking for, and I think the information, if it's true, if it's what I think it is, I think the revelation of that information would really melt away a lot of these differences that people see in each other, because now it's, there's something else. It's almost like, if you've ever had siblings and you fight with your siblings, and then all of a sudden some outside bully starts picking on your brother or sister, and then you step in, it's like, no. Only I get to bully this person. You got to go through me if you want anything to do with them. And I think that's sort of what's going to happen with the entire planet. Like when and if we figure out that there's other life, other entities, other, trans medium beings or whatever it is, I think it's going to be one of those moments where everyone really quickly realizes, all of these borders, all of these wars, all of this racism, all of this BS that we've been propagating and churning in our society it's not relevant anymore. It's non-existent. It completely melts away. And so that's why I really love this topic, because it's a topic that no matter how racist you are or how, educated you are, or how Republican or Democrat or whatever you are, this is a great topic that if you sit in a room with somebody and they have the exact same interest as you, and chances are they do, especially when it comes to UFOs, UAPs, and alien life, like they're gonna be curious, and I think that curiosity will bleed into other things that you agree on. It's my whole message is this is a bipartisan issue. This is something that brings everyone to the table, and that's all I'm trying to do,
Well, and it's interesting because, as I've gone through this learning process and things, I mean, it's like there, I see things historically, and unfortunately there is this issue is a political thing because it's been used as a political pawn, for many years, and so for decades. And so it's fascinating. It's like, how do you separate that and then learn how that is being, how it can be used, and people do, like with some of the QAnon stuff, people are using that to kind of hitch into people, and then one idea is expanded upon with another idea that isn't necessarily factual and things. And so it's an interesting thing, and
Well, no, I mean it's like I told you on the phone, all of the people I've learned, and now I know that there was a lot of people on my event, and some of those people have some really let's just say sketchy pasts. I didn't do a police report on everyone before they came on the show. I was just like, hey, are you into UAP transparency? You want to help us, engage our government and ask them for more data? And they were all like, yeah, that sounds great. I was like, cool. Meet me here on this day. We're all going to be talking about it. And then I had, then we had our conversation. And the one thing that I really should just stress to everyone is that, there are going to be racists in this world. Like, there's actually quite a few of them. And the thing with racism, like true, real hatred, like someone who thinks they're superior than someone else because of the color of their skin. Like, if that's what you really, really believe, then number one, your education's probably incredibly low. But beyond that, you're going to eventually, no matter how hard you try to hide that part of yourself, and all of them do, almost all of them do, you're going to slip. You're going to slip, you're going to show yourself, and it's going to be a really, really bad day for you. And so that's why I don't worry about that element. Like, I know that element is almost rampant in not only this community, but every single community, whether it be, it doesn't matter. Like, you could be in a Frisbee league and you're going to have that element of people in there. And so, you can do one of two things. You can spend your energy trying to reveal those people, or you can just let them reveal themselves and use your energy to create beautiful things, and that's my sort of stance on these elements that sort of linger within our community. Like, I think they're despicable. I think they're disgusting, but I know eventually they're going to bubble to the surface. They have to, they always do.
Oh, they do.
And it's going to show, and when it does, what's the most important thing is how we react to it. Do we join the bandwagon and go, you see, he's a racist, he's a scumbag, he's a piece of shit, he's this, he's that? Or do we try to talk to that person and try to make them realize their thought process is flawed?
I know. The thing, though, as you know, with that kind of stuff, it's like, there's not a lot of rational thinking going on with people that have those ideas, and you can't. It is so ingrained, and having had close personal relationships with people who are, that fit that bill. It's like, whoa, and it just, it's fascinating to me. We'll have to talk, off air sometime about some of the things that I've discovered. I'm saying, historically in this subject, and that has just been mind blowing. And so for me, it's like, I just want people to be aware of that, because if we keep allowing this type of behavior, especially from different organizations that are saying, hey, this is okay if somebody's a white supremacist, let's, whatever, then we don't make positive change, and so I totally, you know what I mean? It's like, they're good, I see your side, and I'm sure you see mine. It's like, sometimes I'll be the person that pushes through things, and you be the person that keeps me positive. Okay.
Right. No, I totally get it. I mean, look, it's a tough thing, because you're right. Like, they're not rational sometimes. Like, it's something that's been ingrained in them since birth. It's like a bad dog, right? Like a dog that bites somebody. That dog didn't come out of the womb wanting to bite things. It was the owner who made him vicious. So it's the same thing with a racist. Like you have to break down that wall, as hard as that may seem, because sometimes that wall is made out of 15 layers of pure steel. But I'm telling you, it's a wall that will always come down if you just keep at it. And sometimes you just have to hug a racist. As crazy as that sounds, sometimes you have to do that.
I think
like there's a.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it depends. Like, I mean, there are people, and this goes for a lot of different things along the board, as you say. But I think that, there are people that are so, they're beyond the point of redeeming. And then there are other people,
right.
Like I have different, I had a client that I was talking to yesterday, and we are so on the different ends of this political spectrum and things. But at the end of the day, we could have a great conversation, and we were talking about racism and different things. And it's like we both, could see where the other person, I mean, she's not, the person I'm thinking of isn't racist, but you could see, you always want to try to see, like you have said so brilliantly, show, you always want to see where somebody else is coming from. And that is really important. So,
well, but some people, it's very important though to classify privilege versus racism, because some people in this country are just privileged. They don't understand that their entire life is a privilege. And so they never put themselves in a different perspective, because they're like, oh, well, no, I've got black friends. I've got Jewish friends. I'm not racist. But some of your actions, some of the things you do, some of the things that you assume are, and it doesn't make you a racist. It just doesn't mean you're aware, So I think that's just an important clarification, because like my own mother, my stepfather, some of them have these blind spots, because it's more important. Like my mother and my stepdad and my father grew up in a time where people used to drink out of different water fountains. Like they used to have to ride in different sections of, like, real systematic racism is what they grew up with. And now they're in 2021. They're looking around. They're like, what racism? Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no racism anymore. And it's just like, no. There is. It's just a deeper level. It's a lot harder to see and to point out, because it's sophisticated. They've perfected racism over, the 230, 40-year history of the United States. And they've done it in a way through laws, through oppression, through redlining in districts. There's so many things. And on the surface, it looks okay. But when you start digging into this problem, you see very, very quickly that racism is very much alive and well, especially within our political structure. But those walls are breaking. Like, they're coming down. Like, I know this is a hard perspective, and just, being a person who myself has been a victim of, I wouldn't label it police brutality, but some very aggressive police tactics, a couple jabs in the ribs, and I did nothing wrong. And I'm the son of a police officer, and I got picked out of a group of 12 people. Like, it was so selective. It was one of the most surreal moments in my life. But even with that, I know, and this is something that's hard to keep in mind, there are fewer deaths at the hands of white police officers in 2021 than there were in 1993. Infinitely less. Like, the problem has gotten a lot better, where, we went from Rodney King happening probably on a daily basis. It's just nobody had cell phones in their hands. And now we got 2021, when Rodney King happens again, or something in that realm, there's 20 cell phones pointed at this incident. And so the actions are being curbed. I don't know the numbers, but let's say in 1993, 3,000 people got murdered at the hands of police officers. And in 2021, it's less than 300, or I'm going to say 400 just to be safe, a year. You know, like you're statistically more likely to get struck by lightning than you are to be killed by a police officer. But because we have it on video and it's on our news every single day, we don't get that data. You know what I mean? Like it's 2021. There's never been a better time, even with COVID, to be alive. Like life has never been more abundant. There's less hunger, there's less poverty, there's less, even with almost 3 billion people on the planet. You know, even the most remote parts of the world are starting to get running and clean water and food and medicine. Like, it's not as bad as it was in 1990, let alone 1950, let alone 1850. Like, the progress that humans have made has been extraordinary. But because the world is smaller with these cameras and these microphones, it seems like we're busting at the seams and everything's about to end. I don't see it that way. No, I see it as more of everything is actually pretty damn good, and we should be lucky to be alive. And so we can waste our, I don't want to say waste, we can spend our energies on revealing I think what is the last elements of this. I think this is white supremacy's last hurrah, because in 2046, there will be more minorities than whites in this country. By 2046, that's in 20-something years. So you're going to start seeing more blacks, more women, more Latinos, more diversity, more culture, not only within our local governments like mayors, city councilmen, and things like that. But you're going to start seeing at the state level with Congress, and then you're going to start seeing it at a bigger level with the White House and senators and things like that. I mean, it's coming. It's coming. This old white man's club is dying and they're terrified. And that's what this is. This little last hoorah of racism, like this insurrection at the Capitol, that was the peak of their power. That mess that was in Washington, D.C., that insurrection. I always laugh when people say that. Like, you want to see a real insurrection? Go to Colombia. go to any one of these war-torn countries in South America, and I will show you an insurrection. I will show you a dictator or an evil, overlord.
And I have a friend who's a mainstream journalist, and he was there at that, and along with his other colleagues, and he said that some of his colleagues are overseas and in different countries when things like this are happening, and they said that this was really disturbing, and this was something that was in some ways worse than what they'd
disturbing.
seen. And I think it's for like when I and kind of tapping into the fact that hate groups are on the rise, and there's this kind of a people feel like they've got this liberty to disparage somebody and humiliate, and with women or with different anybody. It's people feel more entitled now, and they are lacking a lot of civility. And I hope that you are right, that this is like the last gasp for air before, I think it is. That whole culture kind of crumbles and a new beginning is made, because that's what we need. It's just vital.
Well, look what happened, man. And I don't, this might piss some people off, but I don't care. Look at what happened recently with the Stop Asian Hate movement. So for one full year, Asians got together and started using a hashtag, started pressuring their local and state representatives to write a law that protects Asian people from hate crimes. Within a year, that got passed. To me, it is one of the most ludicrous things to say that Asian people get to have a law written like that to protect them before black men and women. Like, that's if you believe that Stop Asian Hate is a thing, then you the very first step should have been Black Lives Matter, because Black Lives Matter covers all of those things. If Black Lives Matter, if that's the top of the list, if that's the top priority for lawmakers and and people in positions of power, it also trickles down to less Latino hate, less Asian hate, less Jewish hate, less all of these things. But there's never been a more persecuted group of people than the African Americans in this country. And Asians for 1 year, 1 year got Asia, because of this virus, got a lot of hateful acts thrown at them. But blacks have been dealing with that in this country for 400 years.
Right.
And they still don't have a law that Asian people just got. Like, that is insulting to every single African American that lives in this country. Like, it's just the priorities are wrong. It's not that I'm saying that the law for Stop Asian Hate is a bad thing or shouldn't have been done. Of course it should be done. But let's talk about African Americans first before we start talking about this, because we need to make this country, for a lot of people, this is a 100-yard race, and a majority of that race, people get to start 30, 40, sometimes 50 yards in front of the people who have to start at the 1-yard line. And the people at the 1-yard line are the blue-collar workers, the poor people, the African Americans, the minorities. We have to work for everything we do to get noticed. We have to do it 10 times better than the guy who starts at the 50-yard line, because we have to get noticed, because we're the minority. We are the minority. But like I said, in 25 years, when we're not the minority, I don't believe the trends are going in a way that tells me hatred is on the rise. It's telling me it's coming down. And I'm just looking at the stats of it. Police, deaths at the hands of police, lynchings, the organization of the KKK. Like, the KKK was a legitimate political power in the 60s. They are nothing today. They're nothing. They're a remnants of what they used to be. And sure, maybe they got a little boost from Trump, but if you're going to Klan meetings, and you're working at IBM the following week, you're gonna get caught, man. You're gonna slip. Like I told you on the phone, it's like a cheating husband. If you have that kind of behavior in your blood, you're going to show yourself one way or another. You're gonna get caught. You're going to get caught. So, that's why I sort of have the hope, even as a Latino. Like, I'm not scared. I don't live in fear. And I live in one of the most violent cities in America, in Los Angeles. This town is freaking crazy. But I've compared to New York City, I've never had problems with police out here in Los Angeles. Not once. New York City, completely different story. The police out there are incredibly aggressive because they're all over the place. They're in the streets, they're in the subways, they're on the cart. And that helps people feel safe. It's a thing that the city needs. But what they don't need is bullies with a badge, And there are so many systematic things. Like, I think there's so much work we have to do. But I see the future as something that is not something in despair. I see it as, wow, I know by the year 2050, we'll probably have had 2 women presidents by then, and definitely a Secretary of State, more African-American governors, especially women. Like, I cannot begin. I think this country more than anything needs more mothers in position of power, because they could just, number one, they could balance a budget, so we know that all of the bills will be under control, because men are stupid with the wallet. We just love to buy toys and build war and build bigger weapons and build bigger guns. Right. We need more female voices in positions of power, and I see it. It's happening. Like, you see the Squad, you see Ayanna Pressley, who's like one of my favorite women on the planet, and they're strong. They're smart. It's not their time right now, not this second, because we're just not there. We're just not there yet. But damn, Erica, we are close. We are so close. We are so close. And I that's why I'm like, I wouldn't waste your time. Like, I wouldn't waste your time, because in 15 years, these people will have either changed their tune, because they've had to, because they've been busted, or they're going to look around and go, damn, this is a really lonely, boring, angry corner that I've built for myself, and I think I'm going to get out of it. Like there's a great, this guy was huge in the 90s. He was this black musician who would go to Klan members. They would go to their houses and try to determine, okay, why do you hate me? Like, what is it about me that you hate? And so the place he always tried to start is with common ground. And 10 times out of 10, the thing that he found commonality with racists was music. When you start digging into music and music theory and history, a lot of rhythm obviously comes from Africa, and African Americans, and all of the roots of music go directly, and really the history of man, everything ties back to Africa. But music specifically, like, I don't care how racist you are, you've probably listened to a Jimi Hendrix album. You've probably listened to Al Green or the Four Tops or any. I just watched this amazing documentary about Tina Turner. Like, I mean, there is so much influence and culture in music alone that's how we turned the tide every single time with these hardcore racists. Was, let's find the common ground, and the common ground was always music. And then it turned into, holy shit, I've been wrong my whole life. I've been fed this line of BS for my entire life. And then they have an epiphany, and then they feel so stupid. But the epiphany always comes. It's always there. And I think I think it's just going to take a little patience from us. And I don't think you're going to, look, it's hard to hug a racist, right? We could both agree there, but it's even more difficult to get a racist to understand that he's racist if you're yelling and pointing at how racist they are. You know what I mean? Like, they're never going to listen to you if all you're doing is yelling, racist, 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 look at them. They're going to be like, oh, you're calling me racist? Well, I'll show you racist, instead of, hey, dude, what's wrong? Like, do you need a hug? Like, what's the matter? Like, because if you really dive into a racist past, they probably never had a loving parents, like two of them. The chances are they probably grew up in a single household with somebody who's incredibly hateful, who probably grew up hateful themselves. They probably never had a normal birthday party or any real social interact. Most of these super hardcore racists are home taught. They're taught the most basic of educations from their parents, and then everything else is how evil the African American race is, and the reason why we're poor is because of African Americans and Mexicans taking our jobs, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. But yeah, I mean, that's just my philosophy on racist and this element that we have to deal with when this community. For me, I'm going to choose to ignore them because I just know they're going to reveal themselves. So, and when they do reveal themselves, I will privately reach out to them and give them an ear to vent to, or give them, a person to hug. Chances are somebody that with that much hate in their heart probably doesn't have anyone they can trust or talk to or hug. Like, imagine that. Like, that's sad. Like, I feel bad for them. I'm not angry with them anymore. I used to be really angry with racism and racists, and I've just learned that that's not the way to start the conversation with them, because they were just not going to listen. But yeah, I mean, that's just how I feel.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. No,
but...
no, I like that. I mean, it's good. I like having discussions about that, because I think especially, in the UFO community, that is that is an issue. And so it is an important thing to kind of broach every once in a while. And I appreciate your thoughts on that. So thank you very much. And I want to just say that, I've been, watching your videos. There was one interview that you did that you were like panning the camera. And then,
Yeah.
and then like I think you had a little collapse of your bookshelf or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I probably knocked this poster out from behind me.
And I'm sorry,
which happens all the time.
I mean, I just have to say, yes, there's a reason that we are going to be friends, good friends, because I mean, gee, even last night I was doing my show and it was like I forgot to unmute the mic for like 10 minutes. And I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, I could tell you stories and it's like, it's just this running joke. It's like, oh, okay, here we go again. But so it just made me smile and you handled it. You were so great the way you handle it and things. And
well, the beautiful thing about my show that I've learned real quick is to embrace the mistakes. Like if a mistake is made, point it out. It's even funnier, like it's way more fun than to try and hide it or cover it up. Cause then you just look like you're scrambling and everybody's seeing that you screwed up. So you might as well call it out because it's the elephant in the room, and that it's what makes the show fun. Like there's no mistakes on my show. It doesn't matter. Like my dad comes on the show all the time and he is a technical idiot. Like he comes in, his microphone's muted, his camera's upside down, the lights off, we can't see him. Like, and it's always like, Dad, can you straighten out the camera or can you turn on your microphone? And it's hilarious. It's so funny. So, I appreciate that you like that part of it because I think it's my favorite parts when the more awkward for me, the better. I think it's just fun. It's fun to live in that stuff.
I mean, it is. And it's like life is too short. You can't take yourself too seriously and you just have to roll with it. But I just thought that was so, just that made me smile. So thank you for making me smile. And
no worries. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And so your background is, I mean, you're a professional actor. You were in, and I got to ask you about the adoption agency.
Yeah. What about it?
Well, I mean, tell us about the movie because I've never heard of it. But Bridget Nelson was the director.
Bridget Nielsen, yeah. So that it's a sketch I wrote for Funny or Die, and it was so my friend Kevin, who was living out here at the time, was an assistant for Rex Lee, and Rex Lee was Lloyd on Entourage. So we're like, we flew out to LA. We were working for a production company and we were like, hey, can you get us a dinner with Lloyd? We got a sketch idea. So we went out to dinner with Lloyd and we're like, hey, we, pitched him this idea. He's like, yeah, I like it. I think it's fun. We're like, okay, cool. Well, do you want to do it? And he's like, I'll tell you what, if you steal that beer mug, out of this restaurant and give it to me, I'll do it. We're like, what? Okay, yeah, sure. I'll give me the mug, dude. I'll chug the beer. I put it in my jacket. We walked out. I'm like, here you go, and he did it. So that was, that's how we got him to do it. We didn't pay him or anything. So the idea of the sketch was, and honestly, I wish I'd had more control of it, but there was a lot of hands that went into that sketch. But when I wrote it, the idea was that at the time, Kim Jong-un was still alive and he was close to the end of his reign. So he was like, I need, a son to carry on this regime. So he decides to come to the United States and adopt a baby, adopt an American-born baby. And so the idea was, he's got to go to an adoption agency. So, we were the panel of the agency interviewing Kim Jong-il. And it's a funny sketch. I think it could have been way better. There are a lot of things I wish I could go back and change. But the banter, I think, it's like every time we go back to Kim Jong-un, it's something even crazier. Like at one point, somebody's doing his nails. The next time we cut to him, he's eating a lobster. The next time we cut to him, he's loading a gun because he wants one of his bodyguards just for fun to play Russian roulette. Like it's so silly. But yeah, it's a fun sketch. It's something, God, we made that like 8 or 9, but longer than that. God, it was probably 12 years ago I made that sketch. Yeah, it was a long time ago. But it was sort of my foot in the door in Los Angeles because it was the first thing I shot for Funny or Die. And then right after I made that, I moved to LA. And then I started doing, studying comedy. I was studying comedy and improv in New York City, but I had to start all over again when I moved out here because I didn't really know anybody. And so, that's kind of what got me to move out here was that sketch, weirdly enough. That's funny you bring that one up. What was about that one that you made me, that made you go, oh, I want to know a little bit more about that.
Okay, and full disclosure, well, I'm looking at your, IMDb page, and I saw that, and I'm like, this looks funny, but then I saw it, and I thought it was Bridget Nelson.
Oh no!
And I'm just like, okay, this is weird. This is really weird. I gotta.
Especially if you think it's Bridget Nelson. No, our buddy Bridger Nielsen, who at the time he was a DP, which is a director of photography on set. That's usually the guy who's actually running the camera for the director, and so he was looking for a project to direct, and so. That's why Bridger was the director for that. But he's a cool dude. He's an insanely successful director now. He does so many campaigns for a lot of like nature stuff, a lot of like skiing and action shots and things like that. He's an insane photographer. Really, really cool guy. But that's funny that you thought it was Bridget Nielsen. I'm sure you were really confused by the time it was done. You're like, where was Bridget Nielsen? What's going on?
I was very confused. I'm just like,
I'm sure.
Oh, my God. I mean, like so thank you. I mean, I'm actually, can I watch?
I'm glad I cleared that up
for you. So can I watch this then? Is it a place where I can watch it? Yeah. I'd have to find the link.
Okay. It's on Funny or Die somewhere.
Oh, cool. Okay.
We also did another sketch for Funny or Die, which I didn't love, but it had Nadia from American Pie, like the Russian girl next door neighbor who the main character like fell in love with. So we did a sketch with her, Elizabeth. I'm forgetting her name. Gosh, it's so embarrassing. But yeah, so we did a couple sketches for Funny or Die. But the one thing, I don't know if you got a chance. The one thing I'm really proud of is a TV show pilot I shot a couple of years back, and I just submitted it to my first film festival, and I was shocked it got in. And so that one is the one I'm super proud of because it's all mine. It's 100% my idea. I shot it, I edited it, I directed it, I wrote it. It's my baby. And for a long time, I would collaborate with people. And the reason why I would collaborate with people is because I wasn't confident in myself in some aspects of a production. Like, I know I could act, I know I could be funny, but I'm not a writer. Or at least I never thought of myself as that. And so this project really is sort of given me the permission to be like, hey, you know what? You can do this. You can do whatever the hell you want. You've been doing this for 20 years. Don't be afraid to be yourself, just to take risks and follow your instinct, really. Because a lot of these productions that I would do with other people, I would always come back and I would always say, and people would get so mad, I'd always say, it's not good enough. I don't like it. It needs to be better. We either need to reshoot this or redo this or cut it this way. And, collaborators would be like, what do you, they'd get pissed. They'd be like, well, what do you mean it's not good enough? I don't know. I was like, dude, look, man, are we trying to win awards? Are we trying to like make a name for ourselves? Or are we just trying to make something? Because if we're just trying to make something, I can't do this, So that's kind of when I started venturing out on myself. And then I got this idea and I did it. And it's working.
Congratulations.
So, yeah,
that's got to be a really
really
good feeling
cool.
of accomplishment. And being an actor is a really tough thing. I mean, I've taken lots of acting classes. I've done voiceovers and commercials and different things. And I mean, I know that it's just, you never know where your next paycheck is coming from, I mean, it's
right.
You're living in that, it's like a constant, like, it's like being a singer, for me, it's like you've got this euphoria and then you're in the dirt, and euphoria and then,
right.
And so
right.
it's just
right.
a lot of highs and lows.
Erica, I cannot even begin to tell you Like the bad luck that I've had in this town. I mean, just really nasty luck, where I get something big. And perfect example. Very first thing I booked when I moved out here was a film with Tom Hanks. It was called Larry Crown. It was with Julia Roberts and Tom Hanks was directing it. And the casting that I saw was Tom Hanks was looking for a scooter gang for his new movie. And I was like, that's weird. I just bought a scooter. It was the first vehicle that I was so poor. I bought this little $400 150cc scooter. And so I scooted out to the audition. And then somebody pulled me aside. I was like, hey, could you be at this address on Tuesday at this time? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I show up to the address, and it's Tom Hanks's casting director, a lady by the name of Julie Boulay. And she asked me to do this scene, an improvised scene. She loved it. I mean, she was over the moon with how much she loved me. And so she's like, we're going to call you back. If she's like, are you cool with coming back and reading one more time just in case somebody wants to see you in person? I was like, yeah, no problem. So I go home. Literally 2 hours later, she calls me and she's like, hey, are you sitting down? And I was like, yeah, no, not really, but I'll say yes just to hear what you're going to say. And she's like, so Tom Hanks saw the tape. He absolutely loves you. He wants to offer you the role of, and I can't remember the name of the role, but it was like a main part of the movie. And you're going to be working with Tom for 3 to 4 months. He's going to be your director. I was like, this is insane. So I hang up the phone with her, and of course I start freaking out. So the first thing I do is try to call my mom. So I'm dialing my mom's phone number, and I get a call from Judy again. And this time she says, the first words out of her mouth, she goes, please don't hate me. I was like, I'm not going to hate you. We're like, what's going on? She's like, okay, so another actor who Tom originally wanted for the part just became available, and you're not going to be the part that we just offered you. Now, if I had an agent, that would not have happened. Right. But It was my first acting gig, and I was like, and she's like, but the good news is that you're still going to be part of the scooter gang. You're still going to be working on the film for 3 months, and you're still going to be very close to Tom. You're just not going to have as many, almost no lines. No, you're not going to have any lines, basically. I was like, that's still awesome. Like, I get to hang out for Tom Hanks for 3 months. Yes, please sign me up. But what was funny, it's funny now, but the actor that took my role was Rami Malek, who just won an Academy Award for his, portraying Freddie Mercury in that bioepic movie for Queen. Gosh. Okay, so the reason why he wanted Rami Malek was because he had just got done working on the HBO show The Pacific with Rami, and Rami is a really good actor. But nobody knew who Rami was when we shot this movie. He was not Rami Malek. He was just, he was an established actor, but he wasn't getting nominated for Academy Awards at the time. So it's fun now to sort of sit back, and that's just like one example. There's so many others like that. And so, for 20 years, it's been rejection, basically. I've get my little wins here. Of course, I've been on television, I've done commercials, and I've gotten paid really well for some of these things, but, it's good pay for 1 year. And then if you don't have anything the next year, it's back to waiting tables, which is, what I do most times. And it's funny because as soon as I started this channel, especially in the last 3 weeks, I've come to the realization, oh man, maybe the last 20 years of acting and performing and doing comedy and all of these things that I've been, whether you want to call failing or falling short or just not fulfilling the career vision that I had for myself, has been preparing me for this show. Right. And so the last 3 weeks, it's really funny, Erica, like I've stopped caring about acting. Not that I don't want to act anymore, but I just don't put as much weight or importance into the auditions anymore. I read the auditions, I memorize my lines, I say my lines, and then I'm done. I let it go. I don't care anymore. And it's almost as if the second I stopped caring, now all of a sudden the auditions are rushing in like crazy. I've got 3 auditions that I've got to do by Monday. Whoa. 3. And they're like big parts, and I don't care. Like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me because I know even if I don't get them, I still got my show that I think a little bit more passionate about now. Like, this is a fun thing. Like, for 3 days a week for 2 to 3 hours a day, I get to talk about UFOs with buddies and friends, and people that I like, and do it in a way that I still get to stay political, because I love politics. I can make this issue a political issue, but it doesn't piss anybody off because all we're asking for you to do is come to the table and help us call some representatives to get some more data. I don't care who you are. And so, it's just weird. It's weird. It's like the 20 years has led me to this moment. And now I really am so open for anything that all of the things that I've ever wanted are starting to happen. And it's almost like I'm at a buffet and I'm like, nah, I don't know if I want this, reoccurring role on a network television. I think I'd rather do my YouTube channel, which is, I would have never thought that 6 months ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. That would have been just the craziest thing to me. So to be here, sitting, talking with you and having the show that I have and meeting all these cool, wonderful people but not only that, but getting people to connect and forgive and forget in some cases, or even ignore, just to move on. And, I love it because I've never felt as good about what I'm doing ever.
So you're an actor, you have this wonderful channel, and you are a therapist. And
I guess, it's Erica, it's not what I intended whatsoever. Like, this was not my goal or my vision or my dream. Like, I've been telling people for the last 2 weeks, I'm not in control of this. Like, all of this inspiration that I've been getting, it's not original thought. It's not something I'm thinking of. It's something that is literally being plugged into my head. How it's getting in there, I have no idea. We could sit there and speculate and sort of and theorize about what might be happening to me right now. But it's awesome. I've stepped into a roller coaster and I'm just enjoying the ride as much as I can before the coaster comes to an end and stops in the station. I'm enjoying every turn, every click, every feeling that you get in your stomach that you get on a roller coaster. It feels so good. It feels
That's
so
awesome.
good.
And I love that.
And just the byproduct of that has just been, reconciling differences between, people like you and me. I had a 2-hour conversation with Jeremy Corbell about some of the folks that were on the Big Phone Home, and getting him to trust me and sort of what I was trying to do was a small feat. I want to say it was a large feat, but by the end of the conversation, he almost said exactly what you said. He's like, dude, you're a healer. I'm like, dude, I'm not a healer. I'm just trying to get everybody to put their blinders on, and focus on the goal, because the goal, I think, takes care of all of these issues that we find super important, and for me anyway, they're just not. Like, I think you'll find in 20 years, all of these things that we thought were super important are going to melt away. Well, and it's just going to be a much more constructive, beautiful conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great. I love that attitude, and it is an interesting thing, because I've had conversations with some of my other colleagues that have been in this for 50 years, 20 years, different things, and it's like they've seen so much, and then seen so much of the history repeat itself, and a lot of people get discouraged and walk away from the subject altogether, because there are so many facets to it, and it's you know, and so, I mean, it's an interesting learning experience, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's always interesting to watch people and things through that process. Lord knows, like, to hear me on my first radio show 6-7 years ago, whenever it was, to you know, now it's like, oh
wow. My God, it's a huge difference.
I'm a little spicy now.
No, I mean, that's the thing is you got to get those shows under your belt. You know, it's like an actor. You know, you need to do as many shows as you possibly can so you can find that voice and then harness it. And sometimes it took me, for my show, it took me almost 115 shows to really go, oh, okay, I know what I need to do now. And now the vision's so clear. Honestly, I go into the everyday show almost researching nothing because everything just comes to me. Like the show just reveals itself throughout the day. And I never stress or worry about what I'm going to talk about because I know something will be there. It's a really weird feeling, but yeah, I mean, like it's I never, ever planned this to happen, ever. It's a weird turn my life has taken, but a turn that I'm leaning into because I think it's a fun turn.
Yeah, that is cool. And we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then you can go, you know, get a refresher or, you know, whatever you need to do and stuff. And we're going to come back, and then I want to get to, you know, I want to learn more about like how you first got involved. I've heard the story, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and get my listeners to hear this because it's really interesting. I always love hearing, you know, why did people get involved? What made, you know, they gave them the passion and what fires it now and all of that stuff. So let's take a break and then we will be back and yeah, I look forward to it. So awesome.
Me too. A turn that I'm leaning into because I think it's a fun turn.
Yeah, that is cool. And we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then you can go, you know, get a refresher or, you know, whatever you need to do and stuff. And we're going to come back, and then I want to get to, you know, I want to learn more about like how you first got involved. I've heard the story, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and get my listeners to hear this because it's really interesting. I always love hearing, you know, why did people get involved? What made, you know, they gave them the passion and what fires it now and all of that stuff. So let's take a break and then we will be back and yeah, I look forward to it. So
me too.
Okay, so I'm just going to be your mother.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I got to go get it because I'm actually going to be traveling in July. So,
oh, sweet.
Yeah, I got to get it done.
So now, I mean, welcome back to the show. This is the second half of the show, and I wanted to say it's been really fun to have, you know, a great conversation that really had nothing to do with UFOs, but it was really refreshing. I love that. I mean, it's fun to talk.
That's what's cool about this topic, though, Erica, is that you can get into stuff like this through this topic. It's, you know, we started there first, I think, because we've already had some good dialogue back and forth for the last couple of weeks. So I think that's why it was fun to start there. But now we can get into the fun, really fun stuff.
Yes. And so, I mean, so tell us how you first took the plunge to get into this full force and do your show and all of that, because that's a cool story.
No, it's fun. God, where do I start? So first, I mean, I'll start it, I guess, at the very beginning. You know, when I was in grade school, you know, 4th, 5th grade, they would give us a half hour to go to the library once a week. And every week, I tried. I really did. I would try to go to other sections, but every week in the last 15, 20 minutes, and it's only a half hour, so basically the whole time, I would always find myself in the same section, and it was the UFOs, Loch Ness Monster, and Bigfoot. I just could not get enough of the UFO. Once I read I read about Betty and Barney Hill when I was in like 4th grade, and I was hooked. And so flash forward to when I was 13 years old, I saw one. Like I saw a UFO, and it was really close, and it was at a party with a lot of people, and even the adults in the party were confused and just like, what is that thing? And then through when I was in high school, I played football. I was a little bit of a jock, but I was still very much like I am today, where I just try to make friends with everybody. So I wasn't like the jerk of the high school, but I didn't talk about UFOs in high school just because nobody did. It was a really weird thing. And so then high school, then college, I didn't really talk about it. Then I lived in New York City. And, of course, in New York, when you would have those drunk-filled, maybe some drug-filled nights, talking crazy stuff till, who knows what time in the morning, those conversations would come up. And, of course, I would revel in them. I loved them anytime they came up, but I would never bring it up on my own. Then 2017 happened. The New York Times article, Leslie Kane's book that had just released, I think, right before that. I found myself with that same feeling that I had in fourth grade of, oh man, I'm in the library again. And I'm in this section that I just I get such a fun feeling about. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. And in 2017, I was like, should I do a channel about UFOs? And I'm like, no, you dummy, don't, no. Like, what is your agent going to think? What is your manager going to think? What are the people around you going to think? Like, I've got, it's not a brag, but I've got some really big actor friends that are very well respected in Hollywood, and I don't want them to think I'm crazy or a conspiracy theorist or weird. And I also don't want to undermine other opinions or thoughts that I have on other aspects of the world, because let's say I give a political opinion or I have a pontification on something that I think that should be changed. I don't want people to go, oh, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He thinks UFOs are real. I was afraid to not be listened to, right? It was fear that was holding me back from talking about it. So then flash forward to 2019, December 2019. And literally, basically 2 years after the New York Times article, I'm working in a restaurant and we're opening the restaurant. And the very first, there's always people waiting outside this restaurant, a very popular restaurant in Los Angeles. And there was always people waiting out front, waiting to get in when we opened. And the first people that were out there, I'm looking out front and I'm like, I know this guy. Like, I've seen this guy before. He was so familiar to me. This stocky dude with a goatee, he had a hat on, and I was like, damn. And I'm walking around the restaurant. I keep looking outside, and then it hit me like a Mack truck. I'm like, holy shit. That's Lou Elizondo. That's the guy that was in charge of the ATIP program. That was the guy on season 1 of Unidentified. Oh my God. And I just never in my life, Erica, have I ever been starstruck. I mean, again, I've worked with Tom Hanks. I have served Anthony Bourdain, Oprah Winfrey, Madonna. Madonna was like the biggest star I think I've ever been next to. And I was like, cool. Did not faze me at all. But when Lou Elizondo walked into my restaurant, I've never geeked out so hard in my life. And I was so excited. I went to every single person in the restaurant. I was like, do you know who's here? They're like, no, what do you settle down? And I would go into this 10-minute thing of who's here. And I was so excited that he didn't sit in my section, that he sat in another server's section. The server was like, hey, do you want this table? I was like, yes. So I took the table and he's like, the first words out of his mouth, he's like, hello, sir. How you doing? My name's Luis. I'm like, yes, I know who you are. And also my name is Luis. He's like, get out of here. I'm like, no, I'm serious. He's like, where you from? I'm like, I'm from Miami. I'm Cuban. He's like, I'm from Miami. I'm Cuban. I'm like, Jesus, dude, this is crazy. Okay. I think the first thing I told him, I'm like, I just went for the last 20 minutes to every single person in this restaurant that works here and told them that you were coming in. And you want to know what everybody told me? He's like, what? They're like, I don't know who the hell that is. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, man. So you want to know something? you need to let it fly, dude. Like, nobody cares because the information you guys put out, it's cool for me. But, like, these people around here that are working, like, everyday schmoes, it's not, they need something more, man. Like, we need more out of you. He's like, just wait for season. He was sitting at the table with the crew for season 2 of Unidentified. So he was sitting with a couple of producers basically producers. They were all producers. There wouldn't really be anybody else there. And so, I hooked him up with a couple of dishes. We got to talking, and we had just a great conversation the whole time he was there. And then he told me, "Hey, do you want a picture?" I was like, "Oh, I've never taken a picture with anyone at my job. Never in my life. I would never, ever ask anybody to take a picture with me. It's so yucky. Like, it's so desperate." But he asked me to take the picture. And I was like, I can't say no. And so I go to give him my phone, and he's like, nah, we got it. He takes his phone out, and he took the picture and then texted to me. And I was like, Jesus, this guy just texted me his phone number. Like, what is he thinking? Like, he's like, anytime you're down in Encinitas and you want to come take a tour of the headquarters down there, he's like, just hit me up. I'm like, okay, no problem. And then so the new year kicked in. I was so excited, and I told my girlfriend, I was like, hey, I'm really thinking about starting a channel, and I'm not sure what I want to do. Do I want to do something political? Do I want to do a review show where I review video games and movies that just came out in TV shows? Or do I want to do a show about UFOs? And then I was like, I kind of want to do all three, but I just don't know how to do that yet. So I was like, I'm just going to go with the UFOs. And so the original idea for the show was to combine the last two ideas, which was a review show for UFO TV programs, movies, articles, and anything that came out about UFOs, I would review it on my channel. So first season of Unidentified comes out. I reviewed every single – oh, no, I'm getting a phone call. Hold on one second. It's my mom.
Oh, cute.
Edit this out.
Well, come on, it makes it fun.
It's so funny. She called me. I told her to call me because we're doing a Mother's Day show tomorrow.
Oh.
And so she's oh man. Hold on one second. Sorry.
Yeah.
People are trying to get in touch with me. Is that right?
Yeah, whenever you need to be done, we're totally groovy.
Yeah, I think we could do by 4. Let me just see what my mother's saying to me. Okay. Sorry. So the idea was to, review these television shows. So I reviewed every episode of season 1 of Unidentified. I gave it a score at the end of each episode. We talked about what happened in each episode, what was said, which I think is needed, because nobody's holding these. The idea was that, when a video game comes out or a movie comes out, there are a million reviews and theory shows and people talking about, especially if it's like The Mandalorian or something like that, right? And I'm like, nobody's doing this with these UFO TV shows, and somebody needs to, because somebody's got to hold the fire to these production companies when it's not good enough. And there's a lot of productions out there that are just really bad, and they're not doing this topic any justice. And I think the only way to change that, or at least I thought, was to start doing a review show. And hopefully these production companies and these studios would start finding these reviews and going, oh shit, maybe we need to change something, because people aren't liking what we're doing. Maybe we can make the show better, maybe get some more eyeballs or different eyeballs, and there's a couple examples that I point to. Like, did you watch the Netflix special, the revitalization of Unsolved Mysteries?
No, I haven't yet. Maybe tonight's the night.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you should do it. There's only one episode you really are probably going to be interested in, unless, of course, you like murder mystery stuff. I'm not a big murder mystery guy, but they did one episode, which was 60 minutes, completely around the topic of the Berkshire's UFO case. And I had never heard of the Berkshire's UFO. I had no idea about it. And they did such an amazing job at telling this story without any CGI recreations, without any cheesy, like reenactments. There was no, nothing ever felt forced. It was shot on probably one of the best cameras that you could buy. I think they shot it on a Red. Which is, that's the same kind of cameras that Christopher Nolan uses when he, shoots Batman. It was so good, Erica. You have to watch it. I think it's one of the best examples of what I think production companies should be looking at and going, okay, that's how we should try and tell our story, just like that, or similar to it. And then the other example, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the first two seasons of Unidentified. I thought those were very well done. And they gave you information in an entertaining but not reality TV show kind of way. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that was the show for like the first, up until last December, really, or November. And then around November, early December, I started asking people to come on my show. Originally I was going to have my friends and my actor friends come on and we would review films, but it's hard to get somebody who's not into UFOs to watch it, a full season of Unidentified or watch, The Phenomenon. Like even, if for somebody who's not into the topic, they're going to check out pretty quickly. So it was hard to do that. So I dropped that idea and I just started doing the reviews by myself. But anyway, then I started asking people to come on to interview. And one of the first people I asked, I think was MJ Banias. And then it was Martin Willis. I asked Martin Willis to come on the show and he was so sweet. I was like, I cannot believe you said yes. Right. So he comes on. I was super nervous. Probably the worst interview I've ever done because it was the first one I'd ever done. And then, from that, I reached out to Alejandro Rojas, and then Alejandro came on the show. And then Alejandro put me in touch with this lady Kirby at History Channel. And then she got me Jesse Marcel Jr. and Ben Smith, who's a CIA guy and those two guys shot the show, the new Roswell miniseries that they did on History Channel. And so I got, early access to watch that. And then I had, a cool interview with them. And I got to review that show, and so that was cool. And then Alejandro came on the show. And then when Alejandro came on the show, I got the idea for the Big Phone Home, and it was basically listening to somebody's show. I think it was his. And it was, he would end the show, and maybe sometimes you do this too, with, if you want to see any change, the best thing you can do is call your representative. And I would always hear that, and I would say to myself, man, I love you, Alejandro, but it's just not very inspiring, and also, what do I say when I call my representative? How do I even start that conversation? And so that is how I came up with the idea. I was like, well, how cool would it be if I could get Alejandro and Martin and MJ and all these, guys that I've talked to maybe join me on a call-a-thon. Like the original idea was like, in my generation, there was Live Aid. And in Live Aid, it was like this, Queen played and David Bowie. So and it was one of the most amazing live television events, the most watched television event on the planet at the time. And it was a worldwide live event. And it was to raise money for, was it AIDS in Africa or hunger? Do you remember?
Oh, God, I thought it was AIDS.
I think it was hunger.
Well,
I think it was hunger.
It's been so long, but I need to refresh
because
on that.
AIDS was really, really fresh. So I don't think it was like I think Freddie Mercury, at least in the movie, it was like Freddie Mercury had just found out that he had contracted something and they weren't really sure what it was yet. So I think it was hunger. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think Live Aid was for hunger. But anyway, that's whatever.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Now that I'm thinking back and getting with those cobwebs out of my memory.
What was cool, yeah, right? What was cool is like, you know, people would call and donate money and try to end hunger in Africa, and to raise money, they had the best bands in the world play, all together, and none of the bands got paid. It was like the most selfless thing that maybe has ever happened, and so that was the idea. It was like, okay, let's see if I can do a live stream, a live event where people can come and talk about how to reach out to representatives, what to say when you call them, who to call, you know, like who specifically should you call to ask for this information? All of the details that you need to know if you're going to call Congress or a senator and ask them for more UAP transparency or whatever your requests are. So the first person I asked to do that was Alejandro Rojas. I'm like, you know, I was like, is this a good idea even? He's like, I love it. And he's like, anything I can do to help, just let me know. I was like, okay, cool. And then so what I did, I was like, well, who can I get to really get people to go, okay, this is a legitimate event that I should pay attention to and maybe even participate in. And the first person I thought of was Lou Elizondo. And then I reached out through the phone number that he texted that picture through, and I guess he had changed his phone number. And so I couldn't reach him that way. So then what I did is I tweeted out a photo, the photo that we took together, and I tagged him and I said, hey, you might not remember me, but you walked into my restaurant, you know, a little over a year and a half ago or a year ago, and you inspired me to start my YouTube channel dedicated to UAP, reviews and conversation. And I would love for you to be a guest on my show. A couple days go by and he tweets out, hey, Twitter, UFO Twitter, somebody reached out a couple days ago and posted a picture, you know, explaining what I posted. And as soon as he posted that, I hit him up. I was like, I'm your guy. That was me. And then he reached out to me personally. And then he came on the show. And so when he was on my show, I asked him, I was like, hey, do you think this is a good idea? He's like, I think it's an amazing idea. I was like, okay, well, would you be interested in joining us? You know, I put him on the spot right there live. And he was like, absolutely, 100% I'll be there. And I was like, wow, okay. So I hung up, you know, I ended that conversation with him and I was like, oh my God, I think I just did something. And then after that, I talked to Sean Cahill. Sean Cahill gave me the thumbs up. Then I talked to, I can't remember the order after that, but everyone who came on the show was like, it's an amazing idea. And then all of a sudden it started gaining steam. And then I met with, behind the scenes, I met with, I can't say who, but some people that were on the show, and they wanted to talk to me and just make sure what I was doing was going to be successful, because I'd never done anything like this before in my life ever. And so the concern was, you know, listen, we like you. Your passion is amazing. We think what you're trying to do is a little crazy, but we dig it. But we're concerned that we don't want this to turn into a storm Area 51. We don't want this to be a joke. And I was like, okay, you got it. You got it. So I did some homework and I got in touch with somebody put me in touch with Stephen Bassett, who, you know, however you feel about Stephen Bassett, I don't care. Like, he gave me some really great advice on how to handle this politically, and what to ask for and who to call. More importantly, he gave me a bunch of homework. And out of that homework, I created a call list for both Senate and Congress. So you can go to this call list. You can, in your state, you can find who your district member representative is, and in that district you'll find their phone number, their email address, their mailing address, and their Twitter handle, all in one link, all in one place, If you want to find all of those things, you would have to go through 3, 4, 5 different websites just to get the information. And then you would have to have 2 or 3 windows open to, be like, oh, okay, I want to write him a letter. There's his address. I want to send him a tweet. There's his Twitter. In my list, it's just, 2 or 3 clicks and boom, you got a picture with everything that you could ever want about that congressperson. And then I made a senatorial call list. And the thing with the Senate and the congressional call list is if they have nothing to do with the UAP topic, in other words, they're not on a committee that in one way or another relates to the topic of UAPs, I didn't put their name on the list. So every single person that is on either one of these lists is someone you can contact however you choose. If you don't live in their state, of course, they can choose to ignore you because you're not their constituency, but you could tweet at them. You can still ask and just get a little bug in their ear. But I would recommend start with your state congressman and then move to the senators, and primarily the Senate Intelligence Committee. And then you've got the Armed Services Committee, and then you've got the Space Science and Tech Committee. You've got the Aviation Committees, and then there's subcommittees to these committees. I've got every single subcommittee and every single committee with the chair and the ranking member and their phone numbers, their email addresses, their mailing addresses, and their Twitter handles. So I made a website, and I put all of these names on that website. I made a poster. I asked as many people as I only had 60 days. So I only started doing this show a year ago. So there was only really 2 or 3 podcasts, Erica, that I was listening to before I started doing this show. And then as I started bringing people in, I started finding new shows and I started networking as much as I could. And I tried to invite as many people as I could while I was organizing this event. So I never met you. I never heard of Erica Lukes until our little issue. And it was like I was so sad because I was like, man, I wish I had found you because I needed more women on my page. This is a sausage fest, the UFO community. And I need more women. I need more intelligent women and more perspectives on my show and on the Big Phone Home. And it was one of the things that people were sort of like, man, I wish you had more girls. I'm like, me too. And trust me, I tried. I tweeted out. I said, anyone knows that they could recommend to me that wants to help out. And a lot of the ladies that helped, and there were a lot. There was 40 women, but they did all of the things behind the scenes. They didn't have a podcast or a YouTube channel that they just wanted to say, hey, I'm helping call, or I can, I'm part of this Facebook group. I'd be more than happy to share stuff, and if you were helping on that level, I put your name on our poster. And I was just trying to make this as inclusive for everyone as possible. And so that's how I got into this. And that's sort of where I am today. So we did the Big Phone Home. We reached 1.3 million people the day of. I don't know what that number's gone up to now. And when I say we reached, that means that, people were scrolling through their phone and it was in their timeline. Doesn't necessarily mean they watched it, but we've had over 20,000 views on both of these videos. And I, we had people at the DOD, the Department, the Navy Intelligence, the UAPTF, the task force. We had, for sure, Lou Elizondo was at our event, and I have a feeling maybe we had some eyeballs for a little while from Christopher Mellon and maybe even some congressmen and senators. And I think this really opened some eyes, because I don't think they were expecting anyone to organize UFO Twitter and galvanize them to say the same thing on the same day for 8 full hours. And I think, considering the short time that we had to plan this, I cannot wait for next year. I cannot wait, because now I've got a whole year to plan this event, and it's going to be even more powerful. And I think what's happening right now is I think there's some people going, oh no, we thought these guys were just going to be a bunch of potheads that live in their mom's basement, and they were not going to organize politically. Now we're talking about starting super PACs. Okay. Like these are the conversations that this event has inspired. And holy cow. It's awesome. It's so awesome. And so that's when I saw, what you'd posted, and I was like, man, I have to reach out to her because I need her. I need Erica Lukes, because I went to your website. I was like, man, she's an investigator. She's doing really good work. Like, why are we not friends? And so that's why I found it important that we reconcile, we build the bridge that we haven't even crossed yet. And now we've crossed it. And I'm proud to say, and I've announced this, but on your show that you're going to be the first guest. Like you're our first person to sign up for the next Big Phone Home. And that's exciting because, I know for sure all of the people that were there this year are going to be there probably next year. And we're going to have even more voices, even more perspectives, and maybe even more than one day, because there's so many people reaching out to me that are really digging this. And they're all, a lot of them are from UFO Twitter, and some of them were not into this topic at all. And they just found my stream on a whim. And they're like, man, you really, you're talking about this in a very interesting way, because the problem with CNN, ABC, CBS, Fox News, MSNBC, sure, they report on this, but they don't know how to talk about this. They don't know how to have a long form discussion because they don't have the history. They don't have the research. And I'm not a researcher, but that's why I bring on, people like Jazz Shaw and Michael Mataluni and Erica Lukes, because they know the history so well. And they help me navigate this very complex story. And I think it's the biggest scoop that journalists are ignoring. And they're being forced to look at it. And they're having, like the New Yorker, for example, a beautiful introduction into what's happening right now. That New Yorker magazine is going to be at every single restaurant, hotel, and golf course in Washington, D.C., and it is going to be seen by some very powerful people. But not only that, that magazine is passed around to the echelon, the really sort of highbrow, high-nose part of society that really doesn't take this shit seriously whatsoever. And they are now going to be forced to reconcile with, oh man, this is weird and neat at the same time. But when I go to Fox and when I go to MSNBC and when I go to the New Yorker, this is all they got. I need more. And I think my show, your show, all of these wonderful people that I've connected with, all of their shows and podcasts are sitting in the middle of a beach, and all of us are watching the tide go out. And that could only mean one thing if the tide is going away from the beach rapidly. And that means there's a tidal wave coming. There's a tidal wave of curiosity, and our shows are going to be right in the path of that tidal wave. And they're going to be just screaming for more data, more information, more nuance, more conversation, more seriousness, but also some fun. Like this is, if you can't have fun and make fun of yourself in this topic, man, you're going to have a long day. You're going to have a really long day. It's just not going to be fun. And this topic demands fun. And we're doing all of those things. And we had Gaddy Schwartz on our show the other day.
Oh, that's
or
awesome.
Tweeting our show. We had Stephen Greenstreet come on our show. They're watching our show. The Dragon watched our review of episode 1 of season 2 of the Skinwalker Ranch. And we ragged all over that show. I mean, in a good way. We were just we were having a very sharp criticism of the show, but we weren't being mean. Like the Dragon doesn't edit the show. Neither does Brandon Fugel. They have nothing to do with the production aspect of that show. So if it comes out a little cheesy and a little TV reality and we can have some fun with that, all the better. Dragon reached out to me and was like, hey, dude, I'd love to come on the show and do one of these with you. I was like, or he didn't say that. I asked him to be on the show. And I was like, and he was like, absolutely. Like, you guys, I loved it. He was watching the review, Erica. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're it's so damn fun to watch what's happening. And that's why I'm trying to hold out my hand to everyone. And I think some people are like, who the hell is this guy? I don't trust him as far as I could throw him. Like, get away. And I'm just like, please come here, give me a hug. Let's go party. Come on, dude. This is going to be a blast. And I'm going in this really naively, but I think it's the best way to go in because I don't have all the baggage that the UFO community has. And I see that baggage because especially with like someone who like, we have Jeremy McGowan and Jazz Shaw on the show all the time, and they're both military guys. And they're pissed. They're angry. They've been dealing with this for 60 years, and every time they get close to an answer, the rug gets pulled out from under them, and they're made to look like kooks again. And they're pissed. And I'm over here like, just give me 10 years. Give me 10 more years because the political winds on this topic are changing. They're changing the same way with the medical marijuana discussion. Right now, we've got one senator talking about this and talking about it in a very intelligent, rational, calm way. I don't agree with him politically. On a political spectrum, there's a lot of stuff I don't like about Marco Rubio. But I'll tell you what. I love that he's talking about UAPs because right now he is laying out the playbook for any Democrat, any Republican, or any independent to come out and talk about the UAP topic in an intelligent, calm, rational manner. And in 1993, there was maybe one or two senators doing the exact same thing with medical marijuana. And here we are, almost 30 years later. And we're talking about legalizing it on a federal level. A federal level. Like, that's insane. When you look at American history and you look at the growth of what happened to medical marijuana in just 20 years from it being a Class A narcotic, which means it's on the same platform as heroin and cocaine, to being pretty much legal everywhere. That's what's happening with the UFO topic right now. It's 1993.
And it's interesting. I just have to say, and I love your enthusiasm. Some of my friends are older and have been in the subject and were involved in NICAP back in the 60s.
I've talked to them. But
this is like, Gordon Lohr is, Gordon Lohr and Barry Greenwood are two of my friends and mentors and things, and they were back, Gordon specifically was there in the 60s, and he was, they were involved in some incredible things and involved with incredible people in the organization, people of high ranking stature in the military and things in the intelligence community. And so there was that kind of push that happened back then as well. And so how do we navigate the waters as far as, because we can learn from history, and how do we look at specific people and groups that are involved in this subject that might be manipulating it for their own financial and personal gain?
For sure. That's a good question. And I think, well, first, to answer the first part of it, the biggest difference between 1960 and today is there was only NBC, CBS, and I think ABC back in 1960. That's the only television you could watch. Not only that, I think, I'd safe to say probably 60% of the country didn't have television sets. They've got their news on the radio. It's a different world today. It's a much, much different world. Now you've got, I don't have to explain to you what we got. The information moves so fast today. So I think that's our biggest advantage and the biggest differences between those decades and that time. Now, with that said, I think you're right. I think that, we have to be vigilant in this. We have to, even in the 90s, we had like those, or the mid 2000s, we had those press briefings led by Stephen Greer and folks like that. That was some amazing work, and everybody's like, "Oh, is this it?" And I'm watching all of those things right now. I'm rewatching all of that stuff. And I got to tell you, if I was going to go in front of Congress today, I would never, ever, ever bring up Stanton Friedman or Linda Moulton Howe or even a Richard Dolan, not because they're not smart or they don't know the history or they can't articulate themselves well, but because it's too weird. It's too much information for Congress. I'm literally rewatching all of these, like they recreated what a congressional hearing would look like, and they had former congressmen, and they had Linda Moulton Howe and Stanton Friedman and Richard Dolan, and I got to tell you, I'm very much into this topic, and I'm watching these hearings, these recreated what would happen kind of hearings, and I'm like, this is why Congress doesn't want to talk about this, because all of these things are saying, yes, they're true, but it's not simple enough for them. They can't listen to 3 days of this kind of testimony because you're going to bore the hell out of them. What they want is they want to keep, just like what Rubio is doing, got to keep it simple. The simpler we keep it, the more, when I put together the Big Phone Home, the one thing I asked Lou Elizondo to help me with was, I need you to write a script for me because I don't know what to ask for. And you do. You're on the Hill every day asking for this. So I need to know what you're asking for. So when I tell people what to call for, it's helping you. It's not going against you. And one of the things that they asked for was an extension. They need an additional 180 days, which isn't sexy. That's not what people want to hear. What, Lou? You want to give them an additional? Yes, I do, because this is government. They're very slow. So that's a request that we had. Hey, we're going to give you 180 days. So right off the bat, we're starting on a good foot, and we're keeping it simple. And then the next thing we want is a preliminary report in the meantime. So just show us what you got, so that way we know you're taking it seriously. And so then another 180-day passes, and maybe we get a report that's more substantial. But before we get that report, we're also requesting, hey, we want a yearly report. We want to see this information every year. We want to talk about next year some public funding. I would love to give Erica Lukes the opportunity to apply for a grant that gives her a Sky Hub. So Erica Lukes can put a sky watching machine in her backyard. And we know that she knows what she's doing. She could upload the information. And then now we could start collecting data. We could give Sky Hubs to MIT. We could give Sky Hubs to the SCU. We could give Sky Hubs to NARCAP. We can give Sky Hubs to everyone that wants to apply for one. And so instead of giving $22 million to a program that doesn't give any information to the American people, why don't you don't you give that money to the American people and let them collect the information so we don't have to ask you for it anymore?
I've heard you talk about, your show with regard to kind of Bigelow and different things, and you've, have mentioned the fact, and I think everybody knows this, that there was that $22 million. At the end of the day, nobody really knows what that was spent on, and there is, it's like, why would that be? What, and for me, if people that listen to my show regularly know that I have a lot of questions, as do many other people, with regard to Bigelow and the intentions there, and why after 30 years you've got a bunch of nothing except for people making money.
Well, how come you haven't shared the data? Right. Share the data, Bigelow. What's the problem? I don't understand why he can't share the data. And it's the same thing with Skinwalker Ranch. I think they're all great guys. I got nothing against them personally, but you keep telling us to go to your website. There's nothing there. It's just bios and in a description of something that happened 50 years ago. Where's the data? Where are the cameras? Where are the things you guys are seeing? There's got to be more. And they keep pointing us, look, but there's nothing there. So that's why I am when I go to our government, I'm not going to them with a 20-minute explanation on what we're dealing with here. I'm going to them with very simple requests. And one of the requests is, hey, let us help you collect the data. You can give these things, give 40 Sky Hubs to MIT and let the 20-year-old brilliant kids rip that thing apart, put better hardware and write better software for it, and then share that, open source that with everyone else who's got a SkyHub. Like it's so simple. And then at the end of the year, we've got a mountain of data that's been collected by the public. And now we can say, here you go, government. Here's our data. What do you have? Share what you got. And I think they'll be more inclined to do that.
And you know what's interesting too? I had, I mentioned Barry Greenwood all the time, and he's, and I Ann Druffel, who I was a researcher for decades, and I am lucky enough to have her archive. And there were different forms over the decades of different civilian organizations that would do that, and then their data, would go to specific places. And I wonder now, because there is so much that we are seeing, so many drones, so many things that we could mistake for things. What if some of these people are actually videotaping something that would be of interest that isn't necessarily a UFO? And I think that's why
it happens 99% of the time.
But I mean, it's fascinating. And then you look back at the MUFON database and different things that people, I don't know. There's so much to it. We're going to have to just talk and talk and talk and talk. And also,
for
I
sure.
want to give you like a little, I want you to get a book called Firestorm that was written by Ann Druffel, and it was about the life and the work of Dr. James McDonald, who was a senior physicist at the Institute of Atmospheric Physics, and he prepared a brilliant statement that was submitted to the House Committee on Science and Astronautics in July of 1969 on a symposium on unidentified objects. And if you read this, I mean, it is just, the statement is amazing.
I would love to read that.
And Firestorm,
I would love to read that.
You would just dig it, because here was such a brilliant man who went to the House Committee on Science and Aeronautics, and it's so cool. So I would love for you to read that and then let me know.
Please. Yeah, I just wrote down the book, and I'm gonna look for it as soon as we end the conversation. But right now, my biggest focus is going back historically and seeing what the conversations, what the arguments, what the statements were. So I'm glad you said that, because I need to see where they went wrong, and how, because the biggest difference is, what was the name of the gentleman that you said that wrote that statement?
Dr. James McDonald.
James McDonald. So if James McDonald was living right now, or was the young man that he was in 1966, he would have 20,000 people behind him, going, what he said, and he would have people calling, and that speech would be I got to get my hands on this speech, because if it's as good as you say, I'll read it on my show. I'll play it. We'll break it down. We'll see what he said and where he went wrong, what we loved and what we didn't like, and what we would change. Because we need to go at this as smart as we can, and make it as simple and as sharp. That's the thing. These requests need to cut to the bone. And I think what's happening, especially what you see with the Inspector General right now, is I wouldn't have been, and I haven't said this, but people have told this to me. I'm not claiming this, but if the Inspector General saw any moment of the big phone home, and he saw that there was 20,000 people watching this, and it reached 1.3 million people, if you had any brains in that head of yours, you would look at that and go, uh-oh, something's coming. Something's building. They're going to start demanding answers here real soon, because this is not going to get smaller. It's only going to get bigger. This voice, this little channel with 1,500 people watching 20,000, whatever. This is going to be a problem. So let's nip this in the bud right now. And that's what they're doing from a political standpoint.
And I wonder with the Inspector General, because they, it is very interesting. I was talking about that, on the show this week with Barry Greenwood. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting, though, that they are investigating investigating this. And I wonder if they are investigating the people that were involved with the 22 million to see where that 22
I don't
million
think
went.
so.
I don't know. It's going to be
I don't think that has anything to do with it.
See.
I'm going to tell you why. I don't think that has anything to do with it. First of all, the 22 million was done and spent by 2017. That money has been so far out of our budget that I don't think the Inspector General would give two shits about $22 million that was spent almost 10 years ago. That's the first thing. Also, the Inspector General is not going to get video, pictures, or anything, any data. That's not his job. What his job is to do is to look at the process. And is the process being held up? And if so, is that being done because it's inefficient and they don't know how to do it? Or is that being done with a design? And that's what the Inspector General can do. And basically the way I've been explained is that it's like the principal walking into your classroom in the middle of the day to look at what the teacher is doing and to look at what the students are doing. Because that principal, if he wanted to, he could come right up to your desk, pop that bad boy open and go, let's see what's in here. What are you doing, kiddo? He could close the desk. He might even open your backpack. Principal might even go to the teacher's desk and say, hey, why don't you go stand up and give this lesson? I'm going to sit here and just watch. And so that's what the Inspector General is going to do. He's going to give somebody the title by I think Monday. They're going to have somebody in that position to start looking at the process. And now the Inspector General can't look at the process and go, okay, you need to change it. He doesn't have that kind of power. There's no teeth from that aspect from the Inspector General. But what the Inspector General can do is turn around and go to Congress and go, okay, here's what we found. Here's where they're hiding stuff. Here's where the information's getting plugged. And you guys need to I think what they would do next is start a committee, another committee. But this committee would specifically be a direct connection with the UAP collection and data processing. And that's what the Inspector General could do. So this is not going to be a move that gives anybody any sort of satisfaction. The political process has to play out. First, the Inspector General's got to see that there's a problem. If he does find a problem, which I think he will, he's going to then recommend to Congress what to do. Then Congress is going to either make a committee and vote on it, and it might have to be voted on a couple of times. But here's the thing, is that when it came to releasing the information and getting this 180-day report out, do you know how the Senate Intelligence Committee voted on that? Only one senator did not vote for it. Only one. And I think it was a Democrat. This is the only thing that the Senate Intelligence Committee has looked at and almost unanimously agreed on. That is rare. That is really, really rare. And that's why I think that this is different than any other time in history. And that's what I was trying to explain. I'm forgetting his name to your friend at NARCAP. He lives in Hawaii right now. And yes, Ted Rowe. So that's what I was trying to explain to Ted. I'm like, Ted, I know, because Ted is angry too. He's pissed. He's like, I came up with UAP, we came up with that and they're stealing our shit. And I'm like, Ted, I get it. It's frustrating. And I feel like I'm standing on your shoulders, right? Like you've done all of this work for the last 40 years and I'm coming in here and I'm all like, we can do this, guys. I think this is the best time in history. And they're all looking at me like, you're bleeping crazy. Sit down and shut up. And I'm like, no, I will not sit down and shut up. We need to get louder and we need to get louder together. And the louder we get, I promise you, they're going to start responding to it. How they respond, that's a completely different ballgame. But in that process, Erica, we have to be very, very, very vigilant to make sure that we are not getting duped by the American government. Because the biggest theme that constantly came up during the Big Phone Home and on my show, and you talked about it earlier, is mistrust. There is no trust between the American people and its government. And what I am telling the government, I'm basically going up to the government and saying, hey, you have a trust issue, right? Nobody likes you guys. Nobody trusts you guys. Do you want a little bit of trust? Do you want a little bit of political weight? Release some of this information. Be a little bit more transparent. I'm not telling you to unclassify everything. I'm just saying, give us some radar tracking points with the stuff you filmed and already released. We all know that there's a longer version of those videos. Show us. It's already out. Like,
right.
And so that's, if we can say, hey, this is going to win you some brownie points with the American people, it will. It will.
And I think
so
in the same,
that's what we're trying to do.
breath, and I think that's great. And again, I just commend you because you're so enthusiastic and energetic, and I love that. And I also, I feel very strongly too that there are, like I keep going back to Bigelow and company, because there are people involved in this that definitely are not just like some people in the government. I mean, it's like there are people that are hiding the truth. There are people that are using things for their own personal gain and to create confusion in this subject. And so we have to, just like we want to demand this from our government, we need to demand that from the people that we are surrounding ourselves
for sure.
with. You know what I mean? I know you know what I mean, because I've heard you talk about that.
No, I know for sure, definitely. I mean, look, when the Pentagon approves a $60 billion, drone program, and I look at that and I go, Jesus Christ, like you can't spend $60 billion on infrastructure, but you want to spend it on a drone? But like, how many drones do we need? How many nuclear weapons? Like, why do we have a budget for a nuclear bomb? Like, I don't understand why are we trying to make a bigger nuke? Like, we've got the biggest, we've got the most. Why are we have a budget for that?
Right.
Like, why? Yeah. It's crazy to me. Like if that was a budget for like nuclear technologies trying to improve the planet, I'd be all for $60 billion of spending on that. But to build a bomb? Like, really? You could stop. I'm a foreign policy hawk. Like, I grew up, since the day I was born, Erica, it's been nothing but war fed down my throat. And when I first started looking at this, I kind of got the feeling, I think we're being sold a war. I think we're being sold this idea so that way budgets can be approved for, say, I don't know, a space program, Like, so that's why, and I don't put that, I'm not saying that's not possible, but from what I'm seeing, I don't think that's what's happening, because it would be a criminal act beyond all measure if Christopher Mellon and Lou Elizondo are doing some sort of psyops. Like right now they're going on the biggest platforms like Joe Rogan and they're still pushing this. And they're not, if they're pushing a lie, then, oh man, they are in for a world of hurt if that's what comes out when the Inspector General, because you can't control that can of worms. You know what I mean? Like if you start advocating for the Inspector General to start looking at this and you guys are really bullshitting us, somebody on that aspect of things is going to go, oh man, there's something nefarious going on here. We need to let the American people know. I promise you. Like, I think what would shock you more, Erica, if this was a sophisticated psyops system and that's why the information is being leaked out the way it's being leaked out and sort of dripped for us? Or would you believe more that the reason why the information is being held up is because of an office argument? Like,
yeah, I don't think it's an office argument. I think and this is the thing, it's so complex, and I know that you're starting to see that. It's like, and the games that have been played, and it's just the political jockeying and the rush to try to get contracts and the rush to try to, say that we're studying this when in actuality, if you read things a little more closely, it really isn't about studying what we say that we're doing. And it's fascinating. And it's like, I'm super stoked for you, like, to get Firestorm. and like read it and just let me know what you think and all of this stuff.
I will definitely check it out.
It's so cool.
Well, I can tell you this:
oh
yeah, anytime, and please come on my show. We're on 3 times a week. If you want to come on, you got some time, just text me, and I'll send you the link. And I got to tell you, like, if I start seeing programs popping out of this, programs that are military drenched, in other words, they're programs that are, let's face it, made to kill people, I will call that out. I will call it out, but I don't see it yet.
Okay. Well, we've got some talking to do because there's some pretty interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, we got a lot of talking. No,
I
know there is.
I love it.
I know there is.
Oh my Lord, have mercy! I'm telling you. I love it. But you were, I just, again, I love your enthusiasm. I think you've got such a great sense of humor, and I'm really, really happy that we got past all of that, and I look forward to to lots of great conversations.
I can't wait. I can't wait till you're on the big phone home. It's gonna be awesome. It's going to be so much fun. And yeah, the government hasn't given us a reason to trust them, right? But at some point, we got to put our hands up and say, okay, we know you guys have been nefarious for a very long time, but we're going to start. Let's just start from scratch. Hi, my name's the people. You are? Oh, you're the government. Hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Let's have a conversation. Let's sit down, you and me, over here on this picnic table. See where we can find some common ground. I think we have to at least give that a shot. But at the same time, we can't be stupid. Like we have to really, 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 really pay attention, especially from a foreign policy standpoint, where the money's going, like, and what's being approved at what times. And I could tell you right now, if you wanted to start the Space Force tomorrow, you would need to double the spending of the military budget right now, which would mean, and that budget takes 56% of our spending budget every year. 56% goes to military spending. If you doubled that, we'd be Russia. It's just they can't do it. They don't have the money. It's impossible for them to start a Space Force that quickly. And if they did, it would have to be under an existential threat. Something would have to literally park above our atmosphere and show in one way or another that it's here to really F us up. And then I think you would see every single dollar and penny, not only in the United States, but around the world, immediately being funneled into some sort of space protection program. But I don't think that's the goal, me personally. Just from what I've seen and what I've heard and who I've talked to and what I'm looking at politically. Like, I'm trying to find motivations for Marco Rubio to do this.
Oh, well, we'll talk.
We'll talk, we'll talk. But if no matter what you think about him, you got to admit he's a really good politician. He really, really is.
Think most people in that position, that's no doubt.
Yeah. No doubt.
And I love it because, you and I are going to have great conversations. I'm really super stoked to have you on the show, and, great. This is going to be a fun friendship. So thank you. And you can go to the unidentifiedcelebrityreview.com and check out the Big Phone Home, YouTube, your podcast, all of your social media and everything, and see a great picture. I love your backdrop on your about page. That's really cool. I'm like totally obsessed with backdrops now. So, but thank you so much. And I'm gonna we'll talk soon. Hopefully the next
honestly,
week.
Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you for being so cool. Thank you for having an open heart and an open mind. And just like I tell everybody all the time, like, it's okay to be wrong. Just as long as you own it and you own up to it. I could always move past being wrong, and I think we both did that.
The blanket, the blanket statement was absolutely wrong because, like I said, there are some good people that you had on there, and then, but And we'll sit down and talk, and then hopefully I don't know what, we'll learn from each other. How about that? I think that's good.
That's all we can do, and guess what? I'm going to be wrong.
Yeah. Yep.
This topic's too weird. This topic's too weird not to be wrong, So yeah, but yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm so happy we're friends now.
I know.
I'm so happy. It makes my heart very, very warm. But the door's wide open.
Absolutely. And thank you. And
door's wide open for you anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you. And stay out of trouble this weekend. I'm going to take a little nap and then maybe get into more trouble. I'm not sure what's going to happen.
I've got too many scripts to read to get into any trouble.
Oh, God, good luck. Break a leg.
I appreciate it. Thank you, my love.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great weekend.
Talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, you guys, for tuning into UFO Classified. You can find me at ufoclassified.com or ericalukes.com. Feel free to get in there and support UFO Classified and my work archiving. It is critical that we make sure we are preserving the history so we can look at everything, see the patterns, and try to move forward without the wool pulled over our eyes, which, as you know, when you listen to my shows, that is my concern right now, and we need to be aware of that. I appreciate all of you very much, and we will catch you next time.
So my skeptical mind, and that's just who I am. My skeptical mind goes to, well, yeah, of course, you've got this guy over here that's logical and reasonable, and you got this guy over here that's wearing a tinfoil hat. Of course, the tinfoil hat guy's gonna see a lot of stuff, right? He's like imagining it, or he's watched one too many sci-fi movies.
I want to put it to use to help us frame hypotheses for UFO propulsion, power, stealth, weaponry.
Everything that we experience is very positive.
Sometimes the field of ufology has a short memory span.
We didn't know anything about the $22 million back then. We just kind of thought, well, this is, and I think that was the reason why they were looking for military-type people, because in the military, you work with whatever you got, no matter what the situation is, and you just kind of adapt and overcome.
What are you going to do with all this? You can't even take care of your own files and get them put into the current system, but yet you want to go collect other people's things. So what are you going to do with it? Who are you giving all this to?
It just really struck me about how the common thread seemed to be deception, but deception of a human nature. So that's what I started thinking, who would these folks be? I mean, then I started thinking about the intelligence agencies, what role they could play, and what would be their motivations for getting involved in ufology.
I'm not saying that because the gimbal is not a rotating flying saucer, that means that all the UFOs are false. Not at all. All I'm doing is I'm looking at this one case, these individual cases, and seeing if there's an explanation for those. So try to, if I could ask people out there listening, don't think that I'm trying to attack your entire beliefs about these things.
Nice to be in orbit.